why I left Marvel for DC. Looks like it's going to be a fun video, guys. I can't wait to find out because although I'm not necessarily a DC guy, my guy is. So let's check it out.
I grew up a Marvel kid. Spider-Man,
I
the
understand.
X-Men, the Fantastic Four.
Okay, I think this guy probably grew up around a similar generation to me because those were my shows, man.
Incredible Hulk. Those were my heroes. Probably because those were the comic book movies I watched when I was a kid. I was never really a DC fan. Sure, I knew about Justice League Unlimited, but Marvel was my thing. I was a full-on fanboy.
I get it, man. Those X-Men cartoons, I used to love those things, watched them whenever they would come out back in the 90s. He looks like he might be a little younger than me, but I used to watch those. I watched Spider-Man. I loved Spider-Man for a while. Superman was always my main number one from the time I was about 2 or 3 years old.
And then Christopher Nolan happened.
Yeah, he did turn some heads. I remember when those movies were coming out, people would tell me they were big Marvel people. I'd be like, really? You like Marvel a bunch? They're like, well, I like Batman, but otherwise I'm Marvel. You know, I mean, Christopher Nolan, he did do that.
Watchful protector. A dark knight.
Do you think that Christopher Nolan had that much of an impact, or am I being crazy? Did Tim Burton do it first? Let me know in the comments. I'm not really sure. What? The turning point.
The Dark Knight trilogy changed something in me. It was the first time I saw a superhero movie treated with gravitas. The gritty and grounded take on superhero movies, the philosophical conflict between Batman and the Joker. After that, I couldn't go back to Marvel. Nolan instantly became my favorite director. Then came Man of Steel, this movie.
I want to hear what he's got to say, because I like Man of Steel. I like the new Superman movie. But neither one of them are a 9 or a 10 for me, okay? And it seems like most people, if it's a 9 or a 10 on Man of Steel, it's like a 6 or a 7 on Superman, and vice versa. Or that like if they're a 10, it's like garbage. You know what I mean? But me, I think they're both good, but they both have their flaws. They both deviate. They both don't get exactly what I would want out of a Superman movie. But I'm curious to see what it is that made him turn to DC because of this, you know?
And I remember it like it was yesterday.
Because it made a lot of people hate it.
I was 14, and my parents went out on a trip.
Oh, 14. I think I was at least a decade older than that.
Playing Lover Boy and Lover Girl. And my brother brought home the DVD for Man of Steel. We watched it together with our sister, and we loved it. Man of Steel was such a big deal. My brother and his peers weren't even comic nerds.
Yeah, I'm a lot older than this guy. DVD. I watched this. I took off a day of work after college to watch that movie in the theaters. My boss is like, "You're taking off a day of work for Superman?" I'm like, "Yeah." I didn't care.
But when that first suit reveal dropped, even he said it as his phone background image. High school guys who practically never read comics were suddenly hyped for Superman again.
So, do you think that the reason a lot of people, where his turning point is, do you think that they don't like the goofy Marvel style? Because those cartoons he was explaining, like the X-Men, for example, those weren't all goofy and stuff. Now, the Spider-Man movie kind of was a little more goofy, but more so in a cringy way, because it was like Spider-Man's funny, but Tobey Maguire's not, you know? So, I don't know.
Not long after, Batman vs. Superman released, and this was my most anticipated superhero movie of all time. I had already watched The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2.
I was ticked off we didn't get Man of Steel 2. That's what I was upset about. I was like, but it was supposed to be Man of Steel 2. Then they changed it on us. You know, they put Batman in there, and it was like no longer, because there were so many problems in Man of Steel. I wanted to see them get resolved, you know, like maybe he talks about how, you know, he didn't like killing somebody. He doesn't want to kill anymore. Maybe it shows us, you know, like saving montages, how he becomes the daily savior of the little minuscule problems like Spider-Man does in his movies, you know.
Directed by Jay Oliva. So seeing the same older battle-worn Batman on the big screen was surreal. And by the big screen, I mean on DVD. I didn't start going to the theaters regularly until I was like 18. But I digress. Zack Snyder delivered exactly what I wanted. This was the movie that cemented him as my favorite director. The more I looked into his work, the more it spoke to me. His love for the artwork of Alex Ross, his reverence for Alan Moore and Frank Miller, the exaggerated physiques, the religious imagery.
Yeah, Zach had said that he prefers the Jim Lee style exaggerated physiques, as he put it there, which I don't know that I like the exaggerated physiques the most. I like him to be a Superman. You know, he's muscular, but he's not like Schwarzenegger. You know what I'm saying? Or Coleman, or whatever you kids are saying.
It was everything I wanted from DC. Mythic, operatic, powerful.
Blue phony.
Yeah?
It's Charlie Brown.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's not a problem. It seems like Ultimate Joker wants to share his thoughts with you.
Well, thank you very much, Dami. And here's the thing. Dami's not alone in this journey. I had the exact same experiences around the same age. I was all in on Marvel as a kid. The Raimi Spider-Man movies, the Fox X-Men films. I even watched the first Avengers multiple times. But then
that first Avengers was good.
Something changed around 2013, 2014 when I was around 14 years old. I grew up.
When I grow up, I want to file all day.
I want to claw my way up to middle management. Be replaced on a whim.
I want to have a brown nose.
I want to be a yes man.
And that's when DC grabbed me and I never let go. But here's what hooked me first, and you need to hear this. It wasn't even the movies at first, it was the games. Batman Arkham Origins dropped and that story hit different. The
Batman Arkham Asylum, when that game came out, it turned some heads. I remember, and I also got the VR Batman Arkham Shadow. It was just like what I remembered when I first played Batman Arkham Asylum for the first time. It was like I felt like Batman. It was awesome.
References to the Killing Joke, the depth, the darkness, the themes of fate that were also from that book. I've never experienced anything like that in a superhero video game ever. I looked up the Killing Joke comic because of that game. I read it and loved it. I drew art inspired by it, even named my Xbox 360 gamer tag Ultimate Joker. I spelled it wrong because I didn't want to throw numbers in it due to the correct spelling being taken. But anyway, that game had a multiplayer mode that people slept on where you could play as the Joker. That's where the name really stuck. But that was just the beginning, because what came next changed everything.
Alright, let's hear it.
I am vengeance.
It's all big
I am
picture.
the night. I am Batman.
Let's not forget DC animation. Classics like Mask of the Phantasm, Under the Red Hood.
The Superman animated series from the 90s, loved it. It was fantastic. See, I was watching that around the same time I was watching X-Men and Spider-Man. Those things all came out in the 90s.
Or the animated DC universe started by Jay Oliver himself. They are all masterpieces in their own right. The reality is, DC is better than Marvel in every category, except having a cohesive cinematic universe. The highest highs belong to DC. The best comic book movies, DC. The best comic storylines, canon or non-canon, DC. The best animated shows and films, DC. Even video games.
I noticed,
From Arkham
did he mention comics? I can't remember. You know, comics is where, it all comes from.
Injustice, DC dominates that. But to be fair, Marvel have been dropping some banger games recently. But all that strength and identity in the DC brand has been diluted by an attempt to Marvelize DC. We've had Marvel directors and writers like Bryan Singer, Joss Whedon, and James Gunn, all trying to force that same tone onto a brand that was never meant to be quippy and self-aware.
See, I don't know if I agree with that take, that they're forcing a tone that was never meant to be. I mean, both comics have been gritty and funny. Both comics have had their dark moments and their bright moments. There was a day when Superman smiled on almost every page, and then there were ones written where he didn't smile at all. I mean, it's the writer, and the writers are always flip-flopping, same as the movies from, DC to Marvel and Marvel to DC. This has always happened. I think people just get caught up in, I liked this and saw this first, so that's what I want to be the definitive my version,
We already have Marvel. Why are you trying to turn DC into Marvel 2.0?
And here's what's crazy about that. I watched Marvel devolve into joke fest popcorn flicks. Sure, the first Avengers was fun, but then every Marvel movie became the same quippy nonsense with a few exceptions like the Captain America films. So I jumped ship entirely because DC was doing something Marvel refused to.
Any of y'all have that same experience if you jumped ship because of the quippiness of Marvel? Because, I mean, DC definitely had the grittiness down. They definitely did. But I, as a DC fan, got sick of the grittiness and wanted to see a little humor. That's why I think I enjoyed James Gunn's. I actually thought James Gunn's Superman, this is a hot take. Nobody agrees with me. I thought it should have been funnier. I really do. I felt like it wasn't funny enough, James Gunn's. And nobody agrees with me.
Do, treating these characters like they mattered. When Zack Snyder came along, he elevated everything I already loved about DC. He pulled directly from the Dark Knight Returns comic with lines, scenes, themes, all the stuff that made the comic legendary. And he understood something that the media literate bandwagon bots couldn't grasp. These stories are about more than just punching bad guys, but here's what they really missed.
Guys, don't forget this is a brand new superhero reaction channel. If you are liking my reactions, go ahead and subscribe. I have channels that are not reaction channels, but I started this one because I separated them because people like them and they wanted to continue seeing them when I stopped doing them. So there's too much about that.
Snyder's
the best
Batman
Joker
wasn't
laugh.
just dark and gritty for shock value. It was about a man who tried to save the world, only to watch nothing change. So he became angrier, more brutal. He started losing himself to the darkness. And then Superman, through his kindness, through his sacrifice, pulled Batman back from the edge before he fell too far into the abyss. That's some gourmet storytelling. That's the kind of depth emotionally mature people who actually grew up can appreciate. But the vocal minority of man-children have forced DC into becoming the DCU instead. And what happened? James Gunn's Superman movie lost half the audience Man of Steel had.
Every time DC moves away from its darker mythic roots, whether it's a shift from the Justice League Dark Universe to the mediocre Tomorrowverse, or from the Snyderverse to the current DCU, audiences stop caring. Nobody genuinely loves this new direction. You only have grifters chasing engagement,
Do you agree with that? Especially on that grifter chasing engagement part.
haters farming rage bait for clicks, but almost no one actually loves these new projects. The current DC brand has lost its soul. And
I liked Flash. I thought it looked bad, you know, and I know people hate Ezra Miller, but I liked Flash. I thought it was fun.
I don't say that with anger. I don't hate DC. I hate what's happening to DC.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun
This is getting used so much lately, guys.
or exciting, you make it not that way. I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
Bro, same here. I just love thinking about the heavy, meaningful themes in those older DC movies. YouTube creators like Dami and Resican make me realize that there's a deep minority of people, maybe even a majority, who think the way I do. But thinking is one thing. Making a story about it, whether it's a book, show, movie, or game, that takes some serious skill. That's why I've dedicated most of my channel to appreciating creators like Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, and Todd Phillips. Basically the cool kids table of DC.
So I think it's pretty
I miss the era
clear
of the Dark
that they're not on board with the James Gunn takes. I think it's pretty clear.
Knight trilogy and the beginning of the DCEU. There was genuine excitement back then. People actually cared.
That's true.
Now it feels like a fandom full of bot accounts, fake engagements, and people who hate Snyder and his fans more than they love DC. Fortunately, there are still authentic voices and like-minded people out there. It was a pleasure working with Ultimate Joker in this video, so you should definitely go check out his channel.
You know, I really love what Dami had to say here, and I'm honored to be here to throw in my own personal story that is fairly parallel to his.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and celebrate the DC that I fell in love with. I'm going to rewatch and review the classics, the movies that made this brand legendary.
Let me know if I should check out his re-reviews of these
I'm going
things.
to focus more on what I love about DC than what I hate about it. And after the inevitable failure of the DCU, the real DC brand can rise again. It deserves better. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Were you also a Marvel fan that became a DC fan? Or
No.
were you a DC fan your whole life? Let me know down below.
Whole life.
Thanks for
'Cause
watching, and I'll see you next time.
I'm more of a Superman guy, as you can tell. Guys, remember, this is a brand new superhero reaction channel. I might do some other reactions if you guys want me to. Let me know if I should check out more of his stuff. Don't forget, the link for his video is in the description. Peace out.